Happy Thursday night. We are back in your life. That's right. Crafts and Kickoffs on this special episode talking NFL free agency. But first, we just opened the bar back up. We've been closed for a month. Hopefully, all of you have had a fantastic last 4 weeks or so. And as you know the deal, before we start talking football, we have to let everybody know what we're drinking tonight. And I got to tell you, Screaming in the Woods Saison from Buttonwoods Brewery. I went to Buttonwoods, which is in Providence, a couple of weeks ago, and I had this beer. I tried this beer. I fell in love with this beer. So Kelly and I took, I think, at least 4 beers home, if not 8 of them home. It's a Saison, 5.7 ABV, Screaming in the Woods from Buttonwoods. It is absolutely a fantastic beer. So cheers to all of you on this free agency week. Cheers to all of you on this Thursday night. Let me know what you are drinking. As I always ask you, some of you are drinking water like my guy Adam because he's at work. I get it. I understand. Caveman Curtis just cracked open a Snapper IPA 7.2 ABV from Logboat Brewing out of Columbia, Missouri. Sounds interesting. I know Marilyn. Where's Marilyn? I got to find her little chat in here. Just popped open my Sam Adams Cold Snap. So hello to Marilyn. Hello to all of you. All right, let's get started. And by the way, Edward says, I don't drink. All good. You can still pull up to the bar, get a soda, get a water, whatever you like. Jay, having Chipotle and a bottle of water, baby. So it's all good. We don't pass judgment here. I'm a big fan of craft beer, as all of you know. So I usually enjoy a craft beer during these programs, unless, of course, I get hit by COVID, which happened at the very first episode of this live stream in podcast. I also have Twitter up, and just in case something breaks, if I see it, we will talk about it right on the spot. All right, let's start with story number 5. What are the 49ers doing? What is San Francisco doing? Now, if you watch this program during the football season, you know I mentioned San Francisco as one of those teams that I was not necessarily in love with. I bet the under before the season kicked off. I think the over-under was like 11.5 at that time. I wasn't in love with the 49ers. I did not think that they were going to go as deep as people thought they were going to go. The reason why, age. They had a number of guys long in the tooth. They were beat up. You have a lot of dudes on that roster that had injury history, injury issues. Their division, the NFC West, is no joke. Seattle with Mike McDonald. You've got Arizona. You've got the LA Rams and Sean McVay, who's one of the best coaches in football. So I wasn't necessarily high on San Francisco before the 2024 season. We all know how it played out, right? Sun shines on a dog's butt every once in a while. It shined on my butt about the San Francisco 49ers in the 2024 season. So what we're seeing now from the 49ers is lots of shedding. I mean, they're just getting rid of a bunch of players via free agency. Aaron Banks, left guard, gone to Green Bay. Charvarius Ward, cornerback, gone to the Colts. Talanoa Hufanga goes to the Broncos. Dre Greenlaw goes to the Broncos. Offensive tackle Jalen Moore went to Kansas City. Elijah Mitchell, running back, went to Kansas City. Joshua Dobbs went to the Patriots, quarterback there. They just picked up Mac Jones, if you're interested. Mac Jones went to San Francisco. Javon Hargrave, defensive lineman, left San Francisco. He went to the Vikings. Also on top of that, Deebo Samuel traded. Kyle Juszczyk was released. And I'm probably missing more. But there are a bunch. There are a bunch of players from the last couple of years in San Francisco that have helped that team win a lot of football games. A number of guys are now gone. And I feel like it's been a little bit underreported when we talk about what's going on in this free agency. You know, Mike Silver of The Athletic wrote about the 49ers and said that Jed York, the owner, is starting to tighten up the purse strings a little bit. They just bought a European football club for more than $200 million. Kyle Shanahan is losing influence, according to Mike Silver. And it really began with the Brendan Ayuk stuff. The Ayuk stuff bothered ownership. It did not work out. So they're angry about the Brendan Ayuk contract. So San Francisco is flipping things around this offseason. My issue, though, is they've got to pick a lane. If you're the Niners, pick a lane. Are you going to completely strip it down to the studs? Are you ripping this down to the frame and rebuilding the house? Because when you let all of these players walk away, when you release the number of players that you've released, and I'm not saying all the guys they've lost, all the guys they've released are really good, really young, impactful players, but they have let a lot of talent walk. And I think they would trade Brandon Ayuk today if they got a decent offer for him. So when you're making all of these changes, when you're saying goodbye to most of your roster, it certainly feels like you are hitting the reset button. But they're not really fully hitting the reset button because you still have Christian McCaffrey, a now older running back who obviously had major issues last year with injury. You still have Trent Williams at left tackle. You still have George Kittle at tight end. So what is San Francisco doing? Are they really going to try to rebuild this program, or are they not picking a lane and trying to middle it? Because to me, it seems like they're trying to middle it. And if you're trying to middle it, and you're keeping McCaffrey, you're keeping Kittle, you're keeping Williams, you're keeping some of these older players on your roster, you best draft really well. The Niners have to nail the draft. They have to absolutely nail the draft, not just this draft, but next year's draft. If I were San Francisco, I would just reset the program. I would be trading guys. I would be moving on from CMC. I'd be moving on from Trent Williams. I'd be moving on from Brandon Ayuk. I would be moving on from all of those guys. Completely reset, pick that lane, fully break it down, and start from scratch. And what's interesting is Brock Purdy's contract. We've been talking about Brock Purdy and his contract negotiation. What is going to happen with Purdy? You go back a couple of months ago, it certainly sounded like the Niners were interested in signing Brock Purdy to a big fat contract extension. Now they're trying to like almost hedge their bets with some of their comments the last couple of weeks. So you've got Brock Purdy's contract negotiation happening. You've got all these other guys who are gone. You've got some older leftovers. And then you just sign Mac Jones. And what's interesting about the Mac Jones signing is that San Francisco signed Mac to a 2-year deal. And usually what Kyle Shanahan does, what San Francisco has done over the past few years, when they bring in a backup quarterback, they give that backup quarterback a 1-year deal. So are they telling us something about Mac Jones giving him a 2-year deal? And don't forget, you go back to 2021's draft, Kyle Shanahan reportedly wanted Mac Jones. Mac Jones was the quarterback that he wanted to draft. Ownership wanted Trey Lance. John Lynch might have wanted Trey Lance, but as the story goes, Shanahan was pro Mac Jones. So they give him a 2-year deal. So it's going to be fascinating. Did they give him that 2-year deal because they're going to move on from Brock Purdy? I don't know. All right, before I get to story number 4, let me have another sip of this Screaming in the Woods Saison from our friends at Buttonwoods Brewery down in Providence, Rhode Island. If you don't know, now you know. I grew up in Rhode Island. First 30 years of my life in Rhode Island, the lovely state of Rhode Island. So cheers. Before I continue, I always ask for your help. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to throw a comment in. And don't forget to subscribe. We're trying to hit 6,500 subscribers by draft night. We're a few hundred away. We're getting closer and closer. So as you're sitting, chilling out, like our guy Robert, having a Tito's and tonic again, welcome to the bar again, Robert. We appreciate you. Don't forget to click that thumbs up if you like what we do. All the likes help us with the algorithm. Don't forget to throw a comment in if you enjoy what we do, because those comments also help us with the algorithm. And really, you can hit that subscribe button to help us out to try to get to that 6,500 subscribers goal by the draft. All right, let's get to story number 4. The Seattle Seahawks. What's going on with Seattle? How do you guys, girls, feel about Seattle? The decisions they're making. So they trade Geno Smith, right? They trade Geno Smith to Vegas, and they decide to replace Geno Smith with Sam Darnold. Now, I know Sam Darnold had a really good season until the last couple of weeks for the Vikings last year. But when you look at Sam Darnold versus Geno Smith has been good. A lot of people have overlooked Geno Smith. Geno Smith has been really good in Seattle. He's specifically been really good against pressure. The Seahawks offensive line has not been very good. They've given up a ton of pressure, and Geno's been able to stand in the pocket, make plays, and play good football. So even though Geno's been good, you trade him for a third-round pick. I don't know if Seattle asked around the league before they tried to trade Geno, because I would imagine if you're looking at teams like Cleveland, if you're looking at teams like the Jets at the time, if you were looking at teams like the Giants who need a quarterback, was that the best you could get for Geno Smith when some of these other teams are looking at Russell Wilson as an option? That's the best you could do. And then you decide to go with Sam Darnold. So you're replacing Geno Smith with Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold, he has not been good against pressure. Remember the primetime game against the Patriots when Sam was, quote unquote, seeing ghosts. And that's what we saw the last 2 weeks of the season. A game that could have put them in the 1 seed, Sam Darnold fell apart. In the playoff game, Darnold fell apart. He's had major issues against the pass rush. And now he's joining a team in Seattle who has not done a very good job loading up on the front and making sure that they can protect their quarterback. So I don't love this. I don't love replacing Geno Smith, who did well against pressure, with Sam Darnold, who doesn't do well against pressure. I don't love that idea by Seattle. And then you look at Tyler Lockett. He was dropped. Somebody who had been highly productive for 5 years before last season when his targets dropped because Jackson Smith and Jigba became the man along with DK Metcalf. Speaking of Metcalf, as we know, they traded him to Pittsburgh. So Lockett gone, Metcalf gone. You replace Geno Smith with Darnold. And as Drake May's burner posts, Darnold is 7 years younger and cheaper. He's definitely younger, but Geno Smith, if you're looking, I would not plan on having either Geno Smith or Sam Darnold beyond the next 2 or 3 years. Either guy. So it is a peculiar decision by Seattle to move on from Geno, replace him with Sam Darnold. They signed Marquez Valdez-Scantling. That can't be it, right? They've got to be looking at drafting a receiver or two. They're sitting at 18. Does Tet McMillan fall to 18? If it's not Tet McMillan, do they look at, maybe Matthew Golden from Texas at 18? I'd imagine that Seattle is going to be looking towards wide receiver with that first-round pick. This team will be led by their defense. There's going to be a lot of pressure on Mike McDonald to make this work because they got rid of DK, they got rid of Lockett, they got rid of Geno Smith, 3 of their best offensive players the past couple of years. And now you're going into this new generation. And it almost feels like they're just trying to erase Pete Carroll. I hope that's not what they're doing. Because if that was the main priority, you're doing things wrong. So we'll see if it works in Seattle. But I'm sketchy on replacing Geno Smith with Sam Darnold. All right, another sip of Screaming in the Woods from Buttonwoods Brewery. It is such a good beer. 5.7 ABV. If you're ever down in the Providence area, swing by Buttonwoods. Great place. They don't even pay me to promote these beers and these breweries. They should, but it's a great place. A chill environment. Usually play some really good music, and they have good beer, man. Really good beer. So Screaming in the Woods Saison, fantastic stuff. Let me know what you're drinking. Throw it into the chat. Always looking for your thoughts about what you're drinking tonight. All right, let's get to story number 3. Story number 3, we're going to talk about quarterbacks. The quarterback carousel. Now, I know I just mentioned the Darnold and Geno Smith thing, but there's been other activity other than that. How do you feel about Justin Fields going to the Jets? Do I have any Jets fans in the bar tonight? If there are any Jets fans in the bar tonight, throw a comment in and let me know how you feel about Justin Fields. Because I'll tell you, it feels like to me that the Jets are going to be stuck in purgatory for the next couple of years. I know they're restarting the program with Aaron Glenn, Saleh out, Rodgers out, but Justin Fields is the answer. It almost feels like you would have been better off sticking with Aaron Rodgers, or you would have been better off just going with somebody else like Joe Flacco. Maybe it would have been best if you're the Jets to, I don't want to say tank, but set yourself up to fail to a point to get to that draft so you can draft a future at the quarterback position, because I don't think Justin Fields is your future at quarterback. So it's a very interesting decision by the Jets to bring in Fields. Fields, to me, represents a guy where you might win 6 or 7 games, maybe 8 games. Is that where you want to be? That's not where I want to be. I don't want to be stuck in that purgatory, the middle of that sandwich in the NFL. The sandwich I talk about, the top 4 or 5 teams that are going to contend, the bottom 4 or 5 teams that are going to suck, and then you've got the middle 20 to 22 teams, depending on the year, who are kind of in that middle portion of the league. It feels like bringing Justin Fields into the program makes you part of that fat middle class, which is not what you want to do. And look, I used to be a Justin Fields guy. I was a fan of him coming out of Ohio State. I thought he was okay in Chicago for some of his tenure, but there are things that are wrong with his game that he has not been able to adjust and correct and get better. He holds on to the football forever. He makes some questionable decisions. So maybe just maybe the Jets will get the best out of Justin Fields. Garrett Wilson played with him at Ohio State, so I'm sure Garrett Wilson's happy. So at least you made your number 1 receiver happy, which he was not happy with Aaron Rodgers. But the Justin Fields move is interesting. Then we get to Aaron Rodgers. This guy loves the attention. Nobody loves the attention more than Aaron Rodgers. If Aaron Rodgers could be part of a headline every day, he would soak it in for the rest of his life. That would be his heaven. To be mentioned every single day by the media, to be talked about, even though he tries to tell people he doesn't listen to the media, that's crap. This guy loves being the center of attention. And here we are again, right? He's dragging his feet. He's dragging his feet with his decision. Pittsburgh is interested in Rodgers. The Giants are interested in Rodgers. The Vikings reportedly might be kind of interested in Rodgers. And he's just sitting back, basking in the glow. And he's going to wait until free agency ratchets down even more. And then he'll make his decision so everybody can talk about him. So he can get a full day out of SportsCenter. That's what he's going to do. That's what you have to anticipate Aaron Rodgers doing, because that's what Aaron Rodgers has done in the past. Now let's look at the teams. If you're the New York Giants, you're interested in Aaron Rodgers. Why would you be interested in Aaron Rodgers? I'll give you one reason. Because the Giants are desperate. GM Joe Shane, head coach Brian Daboll, people thought that at least one, if not both of those guys would be out when the season was over. The Giants held on to both of them. So you have a desperate head coach. You have a desperate GM after being embarrassed on Hard Knocks, and not just with the Saquon Barkley stuff, but you have a desperate front office and a desperate coaching staff that thinks Aaron Rodgers is going to be some kind of lifesaver. Maybe he ends up being that guy. But I don't think Rodgers has a ton left in the tank. And maybe I'm wrong. I've been wrong before. I will certainly be wrong again. But you have got a desperate Giants team trying to, keep it together so the coaching staff and the front office can save their jobs. Then you've got Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh just loves average or slightly above average quarterback play. They love it. They love it. They can't get enough of it. They cannot get enough of it. And we've talked about the Steelers before. They've been stuck in this cycle for the last several years where they're just good enough to make the playoffs. They're not good enough to make a run. And they go out and they get another quarterback who's not good enough to make that run and push them over the top. And they kind of just hover around 9 wins, 10 wins. They get into the playoffs. Sometimes they backdoor their way into the playoffs to only lose in the wild card round. They go back into the offseason. They get another average to slightly above average quarterback. That's what they do. They drafted Kenny Pickett, average quarterback at best. They go out and get Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, both guys average, slightly above average. And now they're back in the hunt for another quarterback, and we're not talking about somebody young. Now, maybe, I want to leave the door open. Maybe they will bring in somebody like Rodgers, and then they'll end up drafting a quarterback late in the first round. Maybe they'll make a move. Maybe, just maybe. And by the way, DeMarcus Lawrence just said, Dallas is my home. DeMarcus Lawrence left Dallas. Dallas is my home, but I know for sure I'm not going to win a Super Bowl there. What a kick to Jerry Jones's crotch. Yikes. Brandon says, cheers, Nick. How's the weather up in the Boston area this week? It hasn't been bad, Brandon. Has not been bad. Where are you, my friend? Are you in the 757? If so, I'm coming down next week. A little visit to Virginia next week. I'll be down in Virginia Beach. Can't wait. But how about that shot from DeMarcus Lawrence? Yikes. Back to Pittsburgh. Maybe they draft a young quarterback. Maybe they'll bring in Rodgers and he will hang out for a year. And they will end up developing. Brandon, by the way, is in Nashville. Almost 80 today. Whew. Manolo, you the best. No, Manolo, you the best. Thanks for walking on into the bar and hanging out tonight. So Pittsburgh, just doing Pittsburgh things. Minnesota's interesting with Aaron Rodgers, right? I think that's the most promising spot. You've got KOC, right? Kevin O'Connell, head coach, really good play caller. We all know about him. You've got Addison. You've got Justin Jefferson. They just rebuilt their offensive line. They signed Ryan Kelly and Will Freeze, helping out the interior of that offensive line. So if you are Rodgers, I'd have to imagine the team that's on top of your personal list would be Minnesota. I would think second would be Pittsburgh. It feels to me like Rodgers doesn't want to go to New York or doesn't want to stay in New York. And so he's trying to use the Giants as leverage with the Steelers and the Vikings. That's how I feel. If he ends up with the Giants, it's because, the Giants are willing to pay him more money. The Steelers might not be as interested in him as we might be led to believe. But if I am Aaron Rodgers, I'm looking at Minnesota 1, Pittsburgh 2, Giants 3. That's what I would be looking at. By the way, Greek Lightning, like that. Nice. Nick, we got to get a once-a-year person, crafts and kickoffs. I'm from Mass, living in Minnesota. There you go, Minnesota, Greek Lightning. Yeah, I keep pooping my pants when it comes to setting up something. I do want to get together with everybody and have beers. With the weather warming up, I'm going to try to get that done. Try to get that done this time around. I've been all scatterbrained. I want to do a meetup. Maryland wants to do a meetup. Maryland's like on a West Coast. We got people in Nashville. I don't know how we can do it, but we should definitely talk about it and do something in person. Maryland just posted that she'll come in from New Mexico. All right. Rob C's my guy. So Greek Lightning's Rob C. From the Patreon. Thank you, Rob C. RD79 says road trip. Mr. Snoopy, you don't have to worry about drinking, okay? Don't worry about drinking, my friend. If you don't drink, you don't drink. It's all good. No judgment zone. Have a water, have a tea, have a coffee, have a soda, whatever you do. Austin says, dang, I need to move. Brandon says to come up from Nashville. Gives him an excuse to go to Fenway. Daniel Perry is in. All these people want to do it. Zach says he'd make the trip from Philly. All right, maybe we'll do that. I got to get back for the people that are here to listen to football talk and talk football. Let's get all serious again. Let's talk sports. I do want to do that meetup, though. So Minnesota's the most promising for Rodgers. What I'm wondering is if Minnesota is legitimately interested in Rodgers, what does that tell us about J.J. McCarthy? So what does it tell you about J.J. McCarthy? Is he physically not ready after that injury? If you guys saw it, I don't know how many of you saw McCarthy at the end of the year, but one of the final games Minnesota had, the broadcast, it might have even been the playoff game, showed J.J. McCarthy. He lost a ton of weight. It was striking how much weight McCarthy lost since the last time I saw him. And I was reading a story a couple weeks ago saying that he lost like 20, 25 pounds at least. So does Minnesota feel like they need another year to kind of build up McCarthy after that injury last season? It's interesting. I mean, they used a first-round pick. What was it, 10 or 11 overall on McCarthy? And now you're looking at Rodgers. So is McCarthy not physically ready? Are there concerns about him? I don't know. But you could be looking at 2 years loss for J.J. McCarthy. And then you got Russell Wilson, who's talking to Cleveland and the Giants. I'm not going to waste much time on Russell because he's just not good. Austin D, $10 super chat for beer. Thank you, Austin. I appreciate you. I appreciate you an awful lot. I think Artie said we should have to get together at my bar, the Tailgate Sports Pub in Virginia Beach. I'll be there a lot next week watching the NCAA tournament. Trust me when I tell you. All right, before I get to stories 2 and 1, don't forget, help a brother out, help the bar out tonight. Like this podcast. Click that thumbs up. More likes means more eyeballs. That's how we beat the algorithm. Don't forget to throw comments in like so many of you are doing. The more comments, the better for us. And don't forget to subscribe. If you're hanging out for the first time, maybe you're checking it out for the second time, subscribe. Click that notify bell. That helps us. So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. All right, let's get to story number 2. I'm going to quickly go through some of the free agency moves that I did not like. The ones I did not like so far, okay? Let's start with Daniel Jones. Now, I don't mean to pick on Daniel Jones, but what has Daniel Jones done at any point during his NFL career that would make you believe that he is a starting NFL quarterback? Now, I know, like Brian Daboll's first year, everybody went bananas about Daniel Jones. He had a great season. No, he threw like 15 touchdowns, okay? He just wasn't a complete disaster in Daboll's first season. But what has Daniel Jones done? He's done nothing. He's done nothing. And he just signed a $14 million deal. 1 year, $14 million with Indianapolis to get into a competition with Anthony Richardson. Didn't like that move. Not a believer in Daniel Jones. Another move I didn't like was Javon Kinlaw. Washington brought in Kinlaw, 3 years, $45 million, $30 million guaranteed. Kinlaw has been inconsistent. He did not get on the field consistently for San Francisco when he was out there. And when you watch him play, he'll make splash plays, and then he'll disappear for the next 2 quarters. So Kinlaw is very inconsistent. There are questions about his approach. There are questions about his personality, his culture fit. So giving Kinlaw $45 million, $30 million guaranteed to me, I thought that was an overpay by Washington. And you wonder why Washington did it. I think I know why Washington did it. It's because Adam Peters, who is the shot caller for the Commanders, he was in San Francisco when Kinlaw was drafted in the first round by the 49ers. So you've got that link. Obviously, Kinlaw is the apple of the eye of Adam Peters. But that deal better work out. I thought that was a bad contract. Let's talk about Cincinnati. What the hell is Cincinnati doing? I know what they think they're going to do. I believe I know what they want to do. But really, what is Cincinnati doing? What are the Bengals doing? None of the big three are done yet. Chase is still looking for a contract. Higgins has been franchised. He's not happy, according to Cameron Wolf of the NFL Network. Trey Hendrickson is not happy. He wants a deal. So you've got 3 of your best players still not signed. All 3 are unhappy. Hendrickson's unhappy. Higgins is very unhappy. Chase is unhappy because you've been dragging your feet with him for the last year plus, and he's one of the best receivers in football. What is Cincy doing? I mean, it's head scratching. And as they continue to just wait on these deals, these contracts are getting signed. DK Metcalf gets $33 million from Pittsburgh. What do you think T. Higgins wants now? 34, 35? Since he said that they're going to pay Jamar Chase as the highest paid player in football that doesn't play quarterback. Well, Myles Garrett just got a contract extension that the average per year is $40 million. So if you thought you were going to get Jamar Chase for 36, 37 million, now you're going to have to pay Chase more than 40 million a year. I ask again, what in the blue hell is Cincinnati doing? What are you doing? Jamar Chase's numbers are going up. Higgins' asking price is going up. Trey Hendrickson just saw Myles Garrett get that contract and Max Crosby get the contract that he got. Hendrickson's price is going up. And Cincinnati is just sitting there shooting themselves in the foot over and over and over and over again. And you know who else is not happy? It's Joe Burrow. The worst thing that you can do is make Joe Burrow unhappy. I mean, it is a disaster. Cincinnati needs to make a decision. Are they going to pay T. Higgins what it's going to take or not? Because if you're not going to pay T. Higgins, stop the game and trade him somewhere. Get an asset or 2 in return and move on from him. Sign Jamar Chase. Try to get Hendrickson done. If you can't get Hendrickson done, move on from him. I mean, it is just insane what Cincy is doing, and this is not the first time. The last team I want to talk about before I get to moves that I did like, Cleveland. I don't understand the Myles Garrett extension. Now, I understand that Myles Garrett is awesome, and I understand that Cleveland, probably did not want egg on their face and let Garrett go somewhere else and maybe win a championship or dominate. But if you're the Cleveland Browns, are you Myles Garrett away from winning a championship? Who's your quarterback? Who's your quarterback? Is it Russell Wilson? Is it Cam Ward? Is it Shedeur Sanders? Is it Jameis Winston? Who's your quarterback in Cleveland? By the time you get a quarterback, and that quarterback is ready to win at a high level, Myles Garrett's probably going to be 32, 33 years old. And that's being nice to Cleveland. If I were the Browns, I would have traded Myles Garrett. Trade him, get the best return that you can get, and move on. Caveman Curtis said it's Kenny Pickett. Yeah, another name. Kenny Pickett's there. Woo! Like, if your plan is that you're going to draft Shedeur Sanders, right? Or you're going to draft Cam Ward, either of those guys going to be ready in the next year or 2 to lead a team? I don't think either of those guys are Jaden Daniels. I don't think either of those guys are any of the top 4 or 5 quarterbacks drafted last year. So it's going to probably take 2 or 3 years until they're ready to compete at a high level. And if that's the case, Myles Garrett's on the back 9 at that point. They should have traded Myles Garrett. They should have taken the lumps from PR, do what you got to do, deal him, get a good return, if not great return, and move on. Just makes no sense. You're not contending. All right, let's get to story number 1 this week. I just gave you some of the moves I did not like. Let me give you some of my favorite moves over the last few days, okay? Let's start with Chicago. And I know this might be like blasphemy. Got to keep on drinking. Oh, this beer is so good. It tastes so good tonight. Oh, man. All right. How I love you. Hits the lips. Just feels right. All right, so Chicago. I know it's kind of borderline crazy to compliment the Chicago Bears and Ryan Poles because of what they've done the last few years. You know, they do a lot of things on paper that looks great. And then in execution, it doesn't work out. They bring in Ben Johnson. I like that move. And now you look at the influence. You look at the influence that Ben Johnson, I think, is having on this program. Look at the changes they've made, right? What have they done? What have they done? Chicago is attacking the offensive line. They traded for Jonah Jackson. They traded for Joe Thuney. They signed Drew Dahlman at center. The interior of that offensive line has been completely remade, reconstructed within the first week of free agency. You've got Jackson, you've got Dahlman, you've got Thuney, right to left. You completely remade that offensive line. And Caleb Williams, who already has an issue with holding on to the football too long, had that offensive line in front of him that was a train wreck last year. Ben Johnson has a clear plan. He came in and he said, we are going to build this offensive line the right way. We're going to get the best offensive lineman that we can get so we can protect our young quarterback. And then I'm going to call plays where Caleb gets rid of the football quickly. And I think you'll see a lot of that. So Ben Johnson obviously has major influence as to what they're doing in Chicago. I think they've done a very good job of rebuilding that offensive line quickly. And, you know, I will say that they also have to make sure that they get some young offensive linemen to develop, because Joe Thuney ain't young, as we know. So they got to make sure they work on that. By the way, Jordan Schultz with the latest update on Cooper Kupp. As Cooper Kupp evaluates his options, sources say he will get the number he wants despite a slow receiver market. The Broncos are firmly in the mix along with at least 4 other teams. So Jeff Howe earlier tonight said that Cooper Kupp was looking for around $12 million a year. We'll see. We'll see what happens with Cooper. All right, so Chicago, good job. Minnesota, good job. Minnesota is undertaking trench warfare. I mean, this is all-out trench warfare in Minnesota. They've addressed, as I got to make sure I plug in my computer, so nobody be alarmed if I have a little bit of shakeage here. It's not an earthquake. All right, there we go. So when you look at Minnesota, trench warfare, baby, offensive, defensive lines, attacking the trenches. We talked about Ryan Kelly. We talked about Will Freeze earlier in the show. Interior offensive line again, right? Center guard. So they bring in those 2 guys to help solidify the offensive line on the interior. Then they go out and they look at defensively, what can we do? They signed Jonathan Allen, who was released by Washington. So they bring Allen in, but they were not done. They weren't done at defensive tackle. They weren't done with the interior of the defensive line, because then they signed Javon Hargrave. So they go out, they get Kelly and Freeze on offense. They get Hargrave, Allen on defense. We're talking about building from the inside out. Minnesota is building the trenches. They have a lot going for them, right? Minnesota, one of the best teams in football last year. It ended ugly, and they still need to figure out the quarterback, whether it's Rodgers or it's McCarthy. But when you look at what they're doing, Addison, Jefferson, Aaron Jones re-signed, right? They worked on his deal. He's set to come back at running back. And now you're building the offensive line. You're upgrading in front on both sides of the football in the trenches. Smart, inside out. That's what Minnesota's doing. I like what they've done. I also like Devontae Adams to the Rams. I thought this was a really, really good signing by the Rams for a couple of reasons. I don't think Devontae's tank is empty. I think he still has something left there. He's an absolute upgrade over Cooper Kupp. There's no doubt. Adams is better than Kupp. There's just no doubt. At this point in their career, Kupp has missed a lot of games. Adams pretty consistent getting out there on the field. Pretty consistent, right? And you look at what they need to do. You got Puka Nacua, who's going to be the number one. Now you've got Adams as your number two. Sean McVay and what he does offensively. I really like Devontae Adams to the Rams. It's essentially a one-year deal, so he'll be playing with a chip on his shoulder. I like that contract for LA. And if anybody's going to get top production from Devontae Adams at this point, it's going to be Sean McVay. They will scheme him up. He will have, I would not be surprised. I would not be surprised if you see Devontae Adams catching, 85, 90 footballs next year, even with Puka Nacua there. Would not be surprised by it. All right. Another move that I really liked. Washington trading for Laramie Tunsil. And the reason why I like this move is because Washington understands the mission. They understand where they are. I didn't like the Javon Kinlaw contract, but I really liked the Tunsil trade because, number one, he's one of the best left tackles in football. He has his problems with penalties and false starts. There are people that question maybe some of his approach and attitude at times. He's looking for a new contract for sure. But Washington, they just got to the NFC Championship game. They know the window, and they've got Jaden Daniels that they want to protect. So you bring in Laramie Tunsil. You trade for Laramie Tunsil. Washington is in the position to be open to dealing picks. Deal those picks, bring in a legitimate franchise left tackle, and now you can kick Brandon Coleman either to right tackle or to guard, and your offensive line is much more settled. So bringing Tunsil in, understanding where you are as a franchise, knowing that you've got to do what you've got to do and all that you can do to get to the Super Bowl. Again, you were one game away this past season. Washington puts their foot on the gas and makes that trade for Tunsil. That is a statement trade. That is a statement to the rest of the league that Washington understands the mission. They understand the assignment. They believe that they are a couple of players away from winning a Super Bowl, and they make a direct line by trading for Laramie Tunsil. It's an aggressive move. It's an aggressive move. But I thought for them, for that franchise, where they are right now, I thought it was the right move. So we'll see if it works out for them. Because if it doesn't, Adam Peters will be rebuilding that bad boy soon enough. Greg Field says, glad you are back. Well, this is a 1-week special, Greg. I think we'll be back. The plan right now is to come back for the draft. This is going to be mostly a regular season, an in-season podcast on Thursday nights. But for free agency, we had to pop in, right? The bar reopened. It's almost like a seasonal hangout place, right? Like one of those pop-up little breweries that they do. Around here in Boston, get like a pop-up brewery where like the weather gets warmer so people show up and they open it up. This is like a pop-up bar during the football season. And then we have a couple of special nights. So thank you, Greg, for the $20 super chat. It means the world to me. I really appreciate it. Screaming in the Woods, Buttonwoods Brewery, Saison, 5.7 ABV. It is an awesome beer. If you're ever down in Providence, check them out. Narragansett Brewery, also in Providence, is a great spot. There are other places in Providence. There's about 4 or 5 breweries that are cool. You want to check them out. But Buttonwoods is one of my favorites when we get down there. So this is a fantastic beer. All right. I got to go have some meatloaf. I'm not lying. Kelly made meatloaf tonight. Anonymous, $10 super chat. Thank you, Anonymous. Beer money. I'll use it wisely. Kelly, where's the meatloaf? You have some meatloaf. Gotta have some dinner. Some din-din. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to comment. Don't forget to subscribe. Help a brother out. Build a community. We love this bar. Hopefully you love this bar. And again, the plan is back at some point right before during the draft. So right before we get to the draft, we will do one of these. Maybe we'll have some mock draft fun. But enjoy your drinks tonight, whether it's beer, liquor, wine, soda, water. Don't care. Enjoy your drinks. Have a great weekend. St. Patty's this weekend, huh? I know it's Monday, but everybody, come on, everybody's going to be celebrating St. Patty's this weekend. We know that. Nobody's celebrating on a damn Monday. So cheers up. As they say, slancha. Brendan McCaffrey smoking his drink. Marilyn says she's looking forward to draft crafts and kickoffs. Yeah. A little crafts and kickoffs. And Marilyn, we love this bar. Well, thank you. Cabbage and corned beef. You're talking Kelly's language now. Kelly's more Irish than I am. I got like a slice. All right. I got to run. I got to have that meatloaf. She's working hard in the kitchen. I can hear her. I can hear things rattling and tingling and clattering and all that stuff. I don't know about the tingle part. Caveman Curtis, I'll answer your question. How are you feeling on the Cena turning heel? Love it. Love Cena turning heel. All right. I'm out of here. See you guys later. Appreciate you. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy St. Patty's Day. Until the next time around draft time. Crafts and kickoffs. Appreciate you. Thank you.